huge spotlight by the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame on influence, but Peart didn't even get his own spot. It was shared with Ginger Baker. What the fuck? Billboard magazine did nothing for Peart. MTV Classic did a 12-hour tribute to Eddie Van Halen, showing the same 12 videos every hour. Nobody cares over there. VH had a huge video vault they could have pulled from. All right, so, and when Peart died, MTV Classic did nothing. So Doug is Doug is running down a manifesto here of grievances he has with TV and print outlets because of the way they handled the passing of Eddie Van Halen and Neil Peart. And Doug, I feel you, man. I mean, I can't tell you you're wrong on any of this stuff. I mean, one thing I'd call to your attention is when you talk about MTV Classic, which used to be VH1 Classic, which I worked for years. Of course, that's where we did that metal show. And then prior to that, I was there for 5 years as a host. But I can tell you, here's something that people don't understand about music videos. And I'm not defending. I mean, I thought it was, look, I'm going to say this. I thought it was great that, at least for the Eddie Van Halen thing, that MTV Classic was at least got something like that together and did that for a day or whatever. But here's what I'll say about music videos on TV. There is an assumption that if a music video existed, that you can just go ahead and put it on TV. Like you could just play it, right? If there was ever a video ever made by a band from any record for any song, you just play it, right? Just air it. Doesn't work like that. Music videos are often owned by the record companies that the artists were signed to at the time they were made. And you have to license those things, or you have to have a deal in place from the record company to air them without paying. And that's a controversial thing because, back in the day of music videos, when they really were big deals and MTV played them in the 80s and 90s and early 2000s, record companies paid for those videos and allowed those outlets to air the videos free of charge because it helped sell so many records. It was a promotional tool. All that changed recently when people don't buy records when they used to, and then suddenly these labels realized, hey, these things, for whoever does show music videos, these are just a programming. This is programming for them now. We want to be paid on some of it. You need to license it from us. You need to pay a certain amount of money to us in order to pay it, and we're going to give you a license to air it. Just like here on Sirius XM, the rules are different than any other outlet like regular radio and stuff. If we play a song on one of the music channels, or even here on this channel, that song has to be accounted for, and there's a royalty structure in place for the artist or songwriter to be paid. So I don't know the nature of what is free and clear and what isn't in the quote-unquote MTV vaults when it comes to old Van Halen videos. But it just because one existed, it doesn't mean you can show it. You have to have a deal in place, and it has to be licensed to you to use for that purpose. And you mentioned that they rotated around the same 12 videos, and I did watch some of it when they did it. I'm trying to think, how many videos did Van Halen really have? I guess more than that when you consider the Sammy stuff, the one or two they did with Sharon, some of the clips, early on. Maybe slightly more, but I don't think a tremendous amount more videos than that. So you got to know how it works. And I think that if they would have had access on short notice to more of a variety, they might have shuffled a few more in. But look, this music we like always gets the short end of the stick, unfortunately. And it's not surprising to see media and mainstream media do that. Okay, this is from Luis from California. He writes, are you concerned about lyrics in rock music being censored and politically correct at this time? We think lyrics should use plain descriptive words and correct translation have a point to make while still being fun, which is what being... Lewis, I don't know. I'm sorry, man. I don't know where you're going with that. Something about lyrics and... lyrics are like... there's people that listen to music for lyrics and are great lyricists, and there's people that couldn't give a shit about the lyrics and they listen because they like the song. I don't get overly into that world. I'm sorry, man. Can't help you there. And I don't know anything about politically correct or incorrect lyrics. I mean, look, there are bands out there that activism and political leanings, that's what they built their whole career on. And then there's other bands like Kiss and many others that it's just about party, good time, and none of that stuff, which is my preference, quite frankly. I like music to be an escape myself, but... This is JT from Tampa. He writes, I have a great future show topic that I think you and your fans would love. If you could change one thing in the history of hard rock or metal, what would it be and why? For me personally, it would be either Dave never left Van Halen or DeGarmo never left Queensryche. Thanks, Eddie. Interesting here, JT. I mean, look, that's some heavy stuff. I mean, if you're talking about anything, you could say, well, that Jimi Hendrix never died, or John Bonham never died, and Zeppelin was still going, or Eddie Van Halen didn't just pass away a couple months ago. I mean, it's endless. So it'd be really hard for me to narrow down. But on a much, much, much lighter note, and much more less heavy note, one thing I would say is I wish that, and everyone knows this that listens to me, so this should come as no surprise, I wish that bands would stop using electronics live and play 100% real and live. I wish this unbelievable seeming acceptance to artists lip syncing and playing to tracks and faking it live would end. And all genres of music. Like I've talked about before, it is just rampant and accepted in pop. But it's getting there with rock too, and it's friggin' scary. And it's wrong and bad on so many levels. So that's what I wish that would stop. And I wish people would get back to plugging in their amps and singing into their mics for real. Here's John in Orlando. John writes, are there any rock bands you disliked or didn't get as a younger Ed, but now love as you revisit their material as an older Ed? John says a couple of his are Joe Walsh and Crocus. Also, I'd like to make a case for your next top 20 to be Cheap Trick. They check all the boxes. Your top 20s are great because it inspires folks to seek out great, unique, deep cuts or whatever on whatever band you're doing. Thanks. Keep on rocking in the free world. Thank you, John. Good question. Bands that I initially didn't get that came around to liking. There's definitely some. I mean, I got to tell you this, and I mean, this might be a little bit crazy to people, but when I was younger, like when I was in high school and stuff, Zeppelin was not an immediate thing to me. Again, I was very young, but Zeppelin was not like, you know, and I think part of that was, and I've said this before, growing up such a Kiss fan when I was a little kid, believe it or not, there was a time where there was like this rivalry of Zeppelin versus Kiss in the mid 70s. I know that sounds ridiculous, but and it was a rivalry in the press. It wasn't a rival and a rivalry among fans at the time. It wasn't a rivalry among the bands. I mean, Kiss,